time for the Severe MMA preview show with Sean Sheehan, Spencer Kite, Harry Powell, and your host, Ian O'Neill.
Salut and ça va, je m'appelle Ian O'Neill and we are here for the UFC Paris preview show. And I am here with me, Spencer Kite and Harry Powell today as we are going to break down all the action from Paris, France. The first time the UFC has landed in France. It's going to be a good one. Cyril Gane, as Sean Sheehan likes to say. I'm not going to be able to keep that up all preview, but he takes on Cyril Gane. He will take on Tuivasa in the heavyweight division. Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori in the co-main event, and a bunch of other good action we will take you through over the next hour or so. But first, I would like to remind everybody to check out our sponsors, All Real Nutrition Bars. Head on over to eatallreal.com. Look at this down below. He's got him. He's got the package.
He's got the SevereMMA t-shirt. He's got the Eat All Real.
He got la package from Sean Sheehan. Oh my God. I forgot to put on mine. I got mine this week too. God damn it. I screwed up there, but
we're straight now, boys. We're straight now. 100% a part of this team.
Let's go. Head on over to eatallreal.com, enter the code word SevereMMA and get you some delicious protein bars. It's been a little bit of a stint, and I think a worthy stint since the last event. Obviously, Leon Edwards shook the world. We've had some time to digest that, and I'm glad we did. I'm not sure I would have been ready to go again last Wednesday. I was still up in arms over that result and that amazing event overall. Well, I mean, the event was amazing because of the main event result, but we're going to have another good one here as Cyril Gane returns for what I would like to describe as his second chapter per se in the UFC, coming back from his first loss, obviously, against Francis Ngannou in the title fight December last. It's been a while since he's been in there. Now he has the time to come in and we get the chance to see what kind of changes has he made. Has he made any changes at all? We don't know. We'll find that out. As terms of matchups go against Tuivasa, for me, I feel this is the kind of a stylistic matchup he probably would have won anyway before the Francis Ngannou. I think we're going to be talking about Cyril before that fight, after the fight. Let's see what new wrinkles he brings in here, but I don't think we're going to see him too much off his back in this fight, essentially. Lots of fighters, and Harry, it just kind of worked out majestically well. Yourself and Sean recently did a speaker's corner over on Patreon, talking about losses, talking about how fighters somewhat need losses to kind of, reevaluate things, to reassess things, to kind of maybe give them the next step or the next jumping level in their games as well. And that's what Cyril Gane is facing here, coming in against Tuivasa. What do you expect to see? Do you expect to see too much different in this fight with Tuivasa? I guess there's a fighter that I would love to see him fight, I think, after this, but we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later on. But let me give your assessment on, what a loss can do to a fighter. Changes in their regimen, changes in their training, changes in their mentality. Cyril Gane has had all those questions to answer over the last couple of months. He has the pressure of a main event in his home country this time around to deal with. And how are you expecting him to handle everything coming in here?
My honest answer is pretty well, I think. I feel like this is the UFC recognizing that Cyril Gane, being in his hometown of Paris and being the first UFC event in Paris, in France in general, is a massive deal, right? I think they understand that they are tapping into a market that they are not currently tapped into. And they've given Cyril a matchup that is favorable for him, one, but would allow him to showcase the best of his skill set should he decide to, right? Now, Tuivasa is certainly no slouch. We know that he can hit extremely hard. We know that in the last little while, he's invested in himself, in his strength and conditioning, in his dieting, in his ability, in the intangibles that are not the fighting stuff. We've seen that this has been progressing into Tuivasa's game. However, you questioned what does Cyril Gane do after a loss? The answer is probably not much, because what really destroyed him in that Ngannou fight was decision making, right? He looked great in all of the outside footwork battles, the point fighting, the striking, the hitting when he had to, staying away from the big power. It all looked great. And then he got embroiled in situations that he really didn't need to be embroiled in. And we ended up where we ended up, right? So I think that for a fighter is actually the best lesson that you could take away from that Ngannou fight. It's the best thing that could have gone wrong, if that makes sense. You didn't go out there and just fucking stand in front of Ngannou and be like, let's do big hitting. It wasn't Ngannou came in and was just a better fighter than you. It was actually your fault, right? And that's something that's great because you can fix it.
A little bit harsh not to say that Ngannou was not the better fighter on the night. I think, the better fighter on the night but got the nod on that night. Could Cyril Gane have done differently in the fight? Yes, he could, but those are the mistakes that he's going to have to make in the fight, so that when he goes forward into future fights, maybe with Ngannou, with other opposition, that he isn't going to make those mistakes. So, sorry for butting in there, but
no, not at all. But I feel like this is going to be less about pressure for Cyril and more about celebration of Cyril. That's my read on it, right? Now, of course, Tai Tuivasa can come in there, put a right hand on his chin and aloft the Paris sky, he could do a shoey with some wine if he fancies it, right? Whatever it is, right? A shoey with cheese and wine and spit and the lot of it, right? We could have a great...
On top of the Arc de Triomphe or something like that. Yeah, this fucking make it happen.
But I feel as though the UFC is making this fight, as I said, as a way to celebrate Cyril in his hometown, in his back garden, and really start the ball rolling with the UFC's tenure in Paris. I think it's a good fight for Cyril, and maybe we can get into the nuts and bolts of it later, but I think it's a good fight for Cyril technically, and I feel like it's a fight that he's going to be confident in. I feel like it's a fight that doesn't pose a huge amount of danger for him. And then he gets on the mic afterwards and he says, Francis, whenever you're back, John Jones, if you fucking fancy it, he does the thing. That's what I think.
It's not a bad thought, Harry. It's not a bad thought at all. As losses go, Spencer, I mean, Cyril coming in here, coming back off the first loss of his career, it wasn't a devastating knockout. It wasn't an embarrassing fucking defeat by Francis Ngannou. I mean, we've seen fighters come in, and Francis being one of those fighters who have suffered a really devastating loss by knockout, and it has changed them. It makes them gun shy, and that can happen no matter what, whether it's from heavyweight down to strawweight or wherever. He's not facing that kind of predicament coming in here, but we spoke last Sunday about the pressure of maybe fighting in your home country, and you're the showpiece there. He's coming in against a really informed fighter in Tai Tuivasa as well, who, has kicked off on a 5-fight win streak, all finishes since he's lost to Sean Sheehan's good friend Sergey Spivak. I think, he's gradually risen up the heavyweight ranks into this position and deserves to be there as well. But we're talking about a Tai Tuivasa who was facing, based off his level of where he was at, stiff competition, but he's coming into elite level competition status now. And for him, there can be no mistakes in this fight. He needs to fight the fight he needs to. It's not going to be easy stylistically for him. Cyril, the type of fight that Tai Tuivasa does fight, kind complement Cyril Gane's style in a way, so he can get on his skates and try and counter him from the outside. How do you see the overall matchup, and how do you see, you know, both these guys and what their mentality may be coming into this fight?
So, I mean, in terms of mentality, I spoke to Cyril Gane this morning, and I mean, he is so full of joy and energy. He is so excited about this opportunity. To what Harry's saying about the UFC recognizing this, he also recognized, he and his team recognized, look, they want to come to Paris. You're not coming to Paris without me headlining. So I'm going to wait until this can happen. I have no reason to rush back. As you said, it wasn't an embarrassing defeat. It wasn't some loss that's going to shake him to his core. We spoke about it this morning. He said, look, I made some mistakes. And then followed it up by saying, and it was Francis Ngannou. Like, guys, it's not like I lost to some bum. I lost to the only guy that's better than me in the division right now. And maybe, as Harry said, it's not that he's better than me, it's that I fucked up that night. And so he's looking at this as just a chance, right? He's fighting alongside 2 teammates, a few other French fighters. They're at home, as he joked, no jet lag, first time in his career. He's not on the road. This is a big moment for him, and I expect him to come out and be at his absolute best. But Tai Tuivasa is walking into this with zero pressure. If you've seen the face-offs, if you've seen any of the media stuff so far this week, and granted it's early in the week, but this is perfect for Tai Tuivasa, right? He's not supposed to be here. He's not supposed to be on the cusp of challenging for championship gold. He's the guy that's supposed to be just a notch below, maybe at best, drinking the shoeies, having the beer company with Tyson Pedro, rolling out the shoeies themselves, the actual merchandise, and just be the fun-loving character in this division, which is great, which is a wonderful role for him. But he's also showing that maybe I want more than that by taking his training seriously, by doing all the work in Dubai. And as much as this feels like a fight that really sort of favors Cyril Gane in terms of the way it plays out, Tai Tuivasa is that guy that can just go in there, and like, his nickname's Bam Bam, and it's fitting because he could just go in there and be an absolute shit disturber and smash stuff up, and he's got a great chin and he hits like a truck. And so if he lands one clean, it changes things. That elbow that he hit on Derek Lewis to finish that fight puts anybody down. I don't care who you are. And if he gets that on Cyril Gane, the night in Paris ends with tears. And as Harry said, perhaps a nice Bordeaux out of a shoe on top of the octagon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, you know, the event status itself, you know, something that I have brought up a couple of times as well, I don't think is really going to affect Cyril that much in this fight, especially after all the drama and all the theater that fucking happened ahead of the Francis Ngannou fight, the former teammates, all that stuff as well. And the way he handled that defeat, he handled it excellently well too. And you know, he had every meaning to do that too. Like you said, Spencer, Francis Ngannou is no easy feat for anybody. When the cage door closes, Harry, both of these guys get in there to start throwing those bows, as Ludacris would say. What would you expect to happen in there? Is it a case of Tai Tuivasa trying to cut off the cage, trying to read what Cyril Gane is trying to set up and counter, trying to limit the amount of times he can kind of move on the back foot away from his shots? I mean, it seems to me like a really, really difficult task for Bam Bam here.
Yeah. When your main training partner for years was the better version of you, it's tough, right? Bam Bam wants to walk people down, push them against the fence, and unload massive shots on them. Trying to force Cyril to the cage and stick him there is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It's not impossible, but it's a difficult thing to do. Cyril, I think, is the better athlete, meaning he will be able to move at a quicker clip. He walks around lighter. As we know, Bam Bam cuts weight to get to 265. Cyril is by far the quicker, slimmer, leaner man at the weight, meaning he'll be able to move quicker. And I feel like he's the more technical striker in that he knows how to move his feet to keep his body out of range of when shots are coming. And he's also a risk-averse fighter. And I don't think that's a negative thing at all. It means that you're able to stay clean and not fight the Shadow Realm guy. And, again, with 25 minutes in the bag against Francis Ngannou. I feel like if I'm Bam Bam, I might try to throw out my willingness to try and technically beat him. And I might try and just Francis versus Jairzinho Rosenstruck him, right? Like, forget all this. Okay, there's something I've talked about before, which I kind of feel is where Bam Bam would have some success, is sometimes two guys step into the octagon and they're like, I've got a game plan and a set of skills, and I've got a game plan and a set of skills, and we're going to see who's the better man, right? Some people go and be like, fuck you, I'm fighting. And I feel like Bam Bam kind of has to do that a little bit. Not do the, I'm going to try and walk you down. I'm going to try and cut the cage off. I'm going to try and stick you. I'm going to look for my shots. I feel like he just needs to walk him down with no respect and run across the cage as many times as he can and just try and separate him from his consciousness. And that sounds a bit superfluous, but I really mean that.
Yeah, no, it makes a good bit of sense because, even though Cyril Gane has some knockouts on his record, it's not as if he has one punch knockout power. Not that we've seen yet, the elbow against Junior Dos Santos. But normally when you're talking about Cyril Gane, it's accumulation of damage, which has a peak. And that's what we've seen so far, whether it's he takes somebody down with Derek Lewis and pounds them out, or after landing a barrage of punches, or it's landing that elbow against the cage against Junior Dos Santos. My fear for Tai Tuivasa here is that he may get caught chasing too much, and he may get caught swinging and missing too much, and that might take him kind of into the later rounds feeling a little bit tired and a little bit sluggish, where we know Cyril Gane is not really going to get tired.
Right, and I think this is where is the investment in the strength and conditioning of Tai Tuivasa, is it based around him building a game plan where he's going to try and walk him down and he needs to be able to move his body for 25 minutes or until he finds the shot? Is he building that strength and conditioning because he knows he's going to need to do very little for big portions of this fight and then do big sprints at Cyril Gane? So he's building his body up for that. Or is it that now he's realized, actually, I'm in elite competition, which means I'm an elite fighter and I need to start treating myself like that? My answer is it's probably a mixture of one of the game plans and one of the elite fighter bits. But I just don't see why you would opt for the second game plan when it's quite obvious that the technical capacity is not there, at least not right now, right? And why would you go into a fight with a guy who is an elite technician at moving his feet and try to out-technique that man? You take the least path of resistance, and that's just try and fucking run him over. You're an absolutely giant human being with monster lunchbox hands. Just run over, throw them at him, and see what comes out of it. Because the least that's going to happen is you don't hit him, right? The worst thing that happens is you get clipped on the way in. We know Tai Tuivasa can take a couple of shots. The best thing that happens is you find him. And if you find him, boy, oh boy, are we in some interesting parts of this fight. So I just feel like, at least for the first couple of rounds, just try and find him, right? Take the risk. Take the risk, see what happens. Because you don't want to allow Gane to get into a rhythm. Because if you get into a rhythm, you're fucked, right?
And that's the thing. I mean, it's the classic case. If it's not broke, don't fix it, Spencer. 15 wins for Tai Tuivasa, 14 of those wins by stoppage.
Yeah.
That's what he likes to do. He likes to find that chin. And like Harry said, he broke it down excellently. I mean, cut the nonsense, cut the fancy shit. It's just get in there and find that chin. That's what he has to do.
He needs to look like Pantoja did a couple of weeks ago against Alex Perez, where they said, are you ready? Are you ready? Fight. And Pantoja just raced across the cage and was like, this isn't technical. I'm going to fucking kill you. And choked him out and was done in a minute. This is the fight. And Harry was succinct and wonderful and eloquent as he always is, throw the technique out the window and take this back to West Sydney. Take this back to the area and just sling hammers. And if you get caught, you get caught. You're playing with house money here. You're on his soil. You're higher than you've ever been in your career. A loss doesn't do anything to you. You don't suddenly fall off the face of the earth. Just bet on yourself. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Guess what? You still have a top 10 opponent next time out. You're still ranked in the top 5 because you put Derek Lewis on his face earlier this year. Just have at it. And I wouldn't be surprised if everyone in Tai Tuivasa's camp and Tai himself are fully aware of this and opt to deploy that strategy on Saturday. Because like Harry said, this isn't a fight where you want to go out there and be like, okay, let's do the technical things. Because Cyril Gane is just far and away better than you. And at 25 minutes, he will just drag you out to the end of that fight where he's beaten you from range and done it cleanly and pretty, and you haven't done anything, and it feels like I went to Paris and all I did was get a t-shirt. Just go out there and sling hammers, man, and see what happens.
It would sure as hell make it for a very exciting fight if that were to happen. I think Harry kind of described it perfectly, is that we were probably going to see Tai Tuivasa fighting in spurts here. I would expect Cyril Gane to throw out the leg kick a lot to try and take away that movement. I would expect him to be on the back foot for quite a lot of this fight, and himself kind of fighting in forward spurts in counteract of what Tai Tuivasa throws at him. I think Cyril Gane in his home country is not going to want to get on his skates too much and just ride out a decision. He won't want to get the French crowd booed up. They're easy to get going, those French. They'll look for any excuse to riot. They look for to cause trouble. So they will not like it if it's a boring fight. They'll want all action, and I would assume that Cyril Gane eventually is going to kind of wear Tai Tuivasa down in this fight and eventually get him out of there, maybe end of round 3, round 4. That would be my prediction of the fight. You guys care to share your predictions?
Spencer, you go.
Yeah, I think something similar. I mean, I think Tai is the type of guy that can hang around for a while. He is big. He is durable. You know, and unless Cyril Gane decides I'm just going to wrestle and puts him on the ground and is hunting for chokes and finishes that way, then yeah, somewhere in the later stages into the championship rounds, he gets him out of there.
Maybe.
I
feel like really
the Leon Edwards effect is in place for Harry. He doesn't want to doubt the underdog.
I don't think that. I do think it has every potential to be a boring fight, though. Every potential.
It definitely does.
I would not be shocked in the slightest if this is a 5-round unanimous decision, clean sweep, 50-45. I would not be shocked in the slightest. If I'm Cyril Gane, I don't give a fuck about the fans. What I care about is getting a dub and getting on the mic afterwards and doing the Francis, sort your shit out with the UFC.
Yeah, but you're not going to get that, Harry, if you go 5 rounds with Bam Bam Tuivasa. You might as well throw that call out the window. You want to go in there, you want to put him out, you want to say, I'm fucking back. I'm going to come and take your title, Francis Ngannou. John Jones, you can get it too. That's what I mean. You make a statement in there and then you make a statement on the mic. That's wishful thinking. But I mean, you're not going to go 5 rounds with Tai Tuivasa and get immediately propelled into a title shot. You're definitely going again. It's likely he'll probably take on someone like Curtis Blades next. And that's when we're going to find out some true answers about Cyril Gane and what he's kind of developed and learned after the Francis Ngannou fight. Because, you know, someone like Curtis Blades is going to want to try and put him on his back.
I don't know, though, because the UFC likes Cyril Gane. They want him to be up in that spotlight. Now that Tom Aspinall isn't there, the John Jones thing, who fucking knows if it's actually going to happen? Right? Like, he's talked about it. It's Stipe, it's this, it's that, it's the next thing. Who knows if it's actually going to do the thing? I
would actually believe that he would be coming back. I think they're genuinely waiting to see how Francis is kind of healing up first, and they're going to try and probably get a squeeze out of Francis and maybe offer him one more fight on his contract if he does recover in time. I think Francis is going to have to play the game there. It's very interesting. I mean, I would say Cyril Gane is fairly down on the pecking order when it comes to title challengers here. I would say you're looking at Francis, John Jones, you have Stipe there, and maybe Cyril after that then.
I think I'd go completely different. John Jones is John Jones, right? Like if he walks in and he's like, I got my big boy pants on, I got my heavy shoes and my heavy gloves, we're doing this, he probably gets the title shot, right? I don't think they give a fuck about Stipe.
They're not going to use Stipe to feed to John Jones, to be honest.
Right. So John Jones beats Stipe, maybe for the interim title, or maybe they just do the John Jones Francis fight. It's either, I just think they give it to Gane immediately, if I'm really honest. I just think they put him right back in there, especially if John Jones wins.
So John Jones beats Stipe and then fights Cyril Gane?
I think either they do John Jones and they do Francis immediately, and when Francis sorts himself out and whatever, or if John beats Stipe, he then fights Francis immediately and then they do Gane.
So you're probably talking about another year on the sideline after this fight for Cyril Gane then?
If he wants it. I don't think he would need to fight. Like he might go win this fight. They book Jones versus Ngannou, maybe. And then he's like, oh, well, I'll just take Stipe Miocic then. Right? I'll do that. Because he's not going to fight Curtis Blades. At least not like, let me fight him.
He should though. Because he's not going to be able to avoid him. I guarantee if you're someone in the UFC right now and you need to answer that wrestling question, you throw him in there with Curtis Blades.
I'm right.
Yeah, but I don't think the UFC wants to run people out against Curtis Blades that they feel Curtis Blades is going to just wrestle into oblivion, right? The Tom Aspinall fight was a tricky booking. It was a tough booking, but they looked at it as Tom can handle himself on the canvas. He's got good power. We're going back to London. It has to be Tom. We can't just give him a cupcake. Here's Curtis Blades. Like, you learned everything you needed to know about how the UFC looks at Curtis Blades when they threw him in there with Francis Ngannou for a second time and he lost. Because that was set up as, let's get Francis the fuck out of here. He's on 2 losses. Looked like a head case last time. We've got this kid can get a revenge win over him. And he got put out in a heartbeat, right? Less than a minute. And since then, the UFC has just been like, well, we're fucked with this guy. Like, what do we do with him? He's entertaining, he's dangerous, but he's also has a tendency where he can be boring. And so I think Cyril Gane is he may need to win another fight after this, depending on how it plays out, depending on how it looks. But I think he's ahead of Stipe. If the UFC valued Stipe Miocic, if they were really like big on getting Stipe back in there, he'd have been back in there by now.
Stipe doesn't seem to be too keen either himself. Like,
for sure.
You know what I mean? It kind of works both ways, but I do understand the UFC, there's one way of getting him back in there, and that's fucking throw a bit of cash in his way. And he probably,
but I don't even think he's a guy at this point. Like, if you know Stipe at all, if you know what his setup is, like this is like, sure, I'm sure there's a number that you could just back the truck up to the house and be like, here you go. And it's a ginormous number, but like, this isn't, just give me a huge number and I'll fight anybody.
I honestly think that if Cyril Gane is going to, and this would be my honest assessment, right? If Cyril Gane is going in there and getting out wrestled by Francis and Ngannou, they're not going to want to throw him in. I think John Jones would probably do the same to him, to be honest. I mean, so there's no intrigue there. You have a little bit of intrigue with Francis Ngannou and Stipe because it's the trilogy. You have a little bit of intrigue because they'll probably sell the interim title with Stipe and John Jones as the most decorated heavyweight against one of the greatest of 100%. All times. With Cyril Gane, you think the intrigue for me is go out there, get your win against Tuivasa, then go out there and prove to someone you can fucking stop a takedown. And you got to do that with a guy like Curtis Blades.
But I don't think the UFC wants to run that risk.
They don't want that. But
they have no interest in running that risk, right? They're not interested in Curtis Blades being a contender, especially if Francis Ngannou is on the throne still.
Right.
And they're not looking for heavyweight fights that are on the ground where it's 2 guys showing whether they can wrestle or not. They want boys that are going to go out there and just sling the hammers.
Yeah,
and do
I
the
agree.
fighting things.
Yeah,
The
I
other
get it.
thing is you, Ian, want to matchmake the correct way.
Yes.
Right? You
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to prove that when a guy gets to the title, he's worthy of the title and he's answered the questions. The UFC want title fights.
Entertainment. Yeah.
Right. They want entertainment. And Cyril Gane is entertaining because he looks the part. He can speak well. He can throw the head kicks. He can do the bouncing. They can show some highlight reel stuff. Then you've got 3 guys at the top. Because again, I don't think they care about Blades and I don't think they care about Miocic. So you've got Ngannou and all the shit that they will run. If they fight again, they will run that same teammate crap all over again.
And they will, but look at the heavyweight division and the guys who are coming up on it as well. You got Sergey Pavlovich, you've got Romanov, who's not there yet at all, or even close to it. You know, we've got these new breeds of heavyweights that are coming through that are not just going to want to stand and bang. So one way or another, Cyril Gane is probably going to have to answer that question further down the line. It's probably, we're looking at it and we're probably all in agreement is how much the UFC can squeeze out of him before that happens. And
happened with Ngannou as well, right?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, they did. It's very true, actually. You know, they're throwing in Francis Ngannou with someone like Curtis Blades. He passed the test twice, so why wouldn't they do the same with someone like Cyril Gane as well? I think that devastating power, the lack of it, maybe would have them a little bit more wary. It's definitely going to be interesting. It's an interesting conversation that we're having there. I liked it, but look at, he has to get past Tuivasa first on Saturday night. We'll put it to rest there, and we'll find out eventually. Something's going to happen after this fight, and it's all kind of hanging on John Jones here. A lot of questions that have yet to be answered in the heavyweight division about Francis Ngannou, about Stipe, and about John Jones. Gladly, we'll get to answer a few about Cyril Gane on Saturday night in the main event. The co-main event, guys. I don't know if I can be nice about this, to be honest, because this fight does nothing for me whatsoever. I've tried. I like Robert Whittaker. I really like him as a personality. I like his style. After 2 defeats from Israel Adesanya, I was like, what are we doing this for? And the same for Marvin Vettori as well. What are we doing this for? Like, I mean, fucking hell, you could have had this at 205. Fuck the weight cut. Let's have some fun. Like, I mean, this at 185, what's the winner going to get with this? To get the chance to maybe gatekeep to see who's the next challenger at Israel Adesanya. Spencer, you know, you're Mr. Positivity, man. Fucking help me out here, brother.
I'm Mr. Positivity, but I recorded an entire podcast yesterday on this fight, essentially as the basis of the, like, what exactly what you said. What are we doing here? What is the point of this? Like, where does this fight move anybody? Great, Robert Whittaker beats Marvin Vettori. And great, Marvin Vettori beats Robert Whittaker. And like, this is one that this is where the matchmaking is stuck on names and stuck on in the moment, as opposed to thinking down the road. Because each of these guys in the position they're in should be fighting someone on the come up, should be fighting somebody that the UFC is trying to advance. If they don't get there, fine. That's a different situation. That's a different argument. Because getting through Robert Whittaker, not easy. Getting through Marvin Vettori, not easy. But you have to have people trying. You have to let Andre Muniz try. You have to let Dricus du Plessis try. You have to let Nasruddin Imavov, who's on this card, who is fighting on this card in Paris on a 2-fight winning streak, was booked earlier this year to face Calvin Gastelum in a top 10 matchup, but is facing Joaquin Buckley on Saturday. Why? Why isn't he facing one of these guys? It's a big step up, sure. But wouldn't you rather see the 26-year-old kid that lives in Paris try to beat a guy that's either a former champion or a former title challenger, rather than he beats Joaquin Buckley and then still has 3 more fights where one of them is facing the winner of this fight somewhere down the line?
Risk, gents.
What's that?
It's all about risk.
Yeah.
It's definitely more intriguing. Like, I mean, seeing someone like Imavov in against either one of these guys in the co-main event, to me, is more intriguing for exactly what you said, Spencer, is that can he do it? Can he get, or, you know, and he'll find out some stuff about himself as well, what he needs to do to kind of get to that next level.
And
It's
like
just,
this is a competitive fight, and I'm looking forward to this fight just in a vacuum, right? In terms of these two athletes, and Harry's Megan is it though, Face? Because I think the same as he does, that Robert Whittaker is a level above Marvin Vettori and a level above everyone in the division that isn't named Israel Adesanya. But I'm interested in seeing it. It just doesn't do anything for the division. And as the captain positive, I'm the guy that's always looking to move stuff forward and see where it gets people going, and let's see where we go. And this is for the silver medal. And like, that's great, but
I'm going to put my captain positive hat on.
here we go.
oh, wow.
That's right.
Jesus,
Wow, what did we get this pleasure on?
California.
The California kid coming back with all that sunshine and positivity.
So I just think what's happening here is that the UFC are building for if Pereira beats Adesanya. That's what I think is going to happen. Like, I don't think it's a great thing that they're doing, because the likelihood is it's an immediate rematch, right? That's what we've seen. That's the precedent that we've seen. And then if Adesanya loses a second fight, whatever. But it feels to me as though that's what's happening here, because everything that everyone has said is right. If Whittaker wins and Adesanya goes and blows Pereira out of the water, or even just wins, are we going to do number 3? Probably not. If Vettori wins, are we going to do number 3? Probably not. Right. So what are we then doing? We're leaving this stale precipice at the top of the division where nobody's really going anywhere. And I wouldn't like to see Imavov versus Whittaker. I think Imavov versus Vettori is a fun fight. But I feel like this is just a fight to either way down the line have somebody waiting and ready to fight Pereira. I also feel that at the end of the day, these guys need a payday. Right. And okay, you know, both of them fought semi recently, but not that recently. So if you are Robert Whittaker, now I get it. You could do an Imavov, you could do a Dricus du Plessis, you could do whatever. But we also, something that both you two have said is like, it would be so nice if we had less fights, right? It would be so nice if we had less cards. But we have to stop saying it, because it's not going to happen. I think we have to start adopting the same approach with matchmaking. It would be lovely if the matchmaking was done at a base of meritocracy, but it's fucking not, lads.
No, 100%. 100%.
I agree.
Again, last week's podcasts. If I have the book, it's this way. If it continues the way it is, it's the way it is.
And I completely agree.
To me, there's even better versions. There's even different versions of maintaining the UFC approach than this fight.
Sure,
that's the problem to me.
But like, we'll get to the Imavov Buckley thing in a minute. But the reason why they're doing that is because it is a fucking simple fight. If Imavov goes in and is able to find Buckley's hips, we're doing this for 15 minutes, boys. That's what's happening.
Yeah, well, we have the right to say as well at the same time.
I'm not saying you don't, for sure. And I think it's important.
Because it does not. In the same way as we, would say, if we had this card last Wednesday, we would have only been able to enjoy Leon Edwards' win for 2 days. And then we're thinking ahead, which kind of takes the magic away. And maybe it was that kind of the fact that we had that gap in the card is that, it gave us that more time to kind of revel in it and enjoy it a little bit more. And that would be probably the number one argument of having too many cards.
I mean, I'm merely using the card thing as an example of us saying something and us not getting what we want, because you're so right. Like, I was away, Leon Edwards gets the finish, and I'm thinking about that for 3 days. Just that, like, fuck me, he actually did it. You know what I mean? He actually did it.
And we don't get that. And we've all been watching mixed martial arts for a long time. And I think why we might have been a critical about kind of that as well. And we're going way off point here. I'll bring it back around. Why we would have been complaining like that, because we wouldn't remember what it was like in the old days, where it was one pay-per-view a month and then maybe 1 or 2 fight nights thrown in between, where you actually do have time to think about these things and kind of enjoy results and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this fight and I'm like, oh God, like even like Robert Whittaker, how is he going to be mentally like coming in here? How can he get himself up? Vettori is a guy who's still chasing that championship. You know, Robert Whittaker has been there. He's been at the pinnacle. He's proven that he was the best. You know, it didn't work out against Izzy. Vettori maybe have that mental edge here. Skills versus skills, you would have to give the advantage to Whittaker. I think it doesn't always boil down to skills. It comes down to your motivation for preparation, changes you're willing to make, and what gets you out of the bed.
But I don't think for me, there's no concern about Rob's mental state. There's no concern about motivation. He's a dude that, you know, loves this shit. Just genuinely, truly loves this stuff. Loves being a martial artist. Knows that he was closer in the second fight with Izzy and will be working every day to continue to close that gap should the opportunity ever present itself. The problem I have is just, and like, it's the last I'll say, and it's circle back to it. This division, and Shawnee and I always joke on the podcast on the State of the UFC, and we joke about it all the time. This division is just so fucked because this kind of fight has been booked up and down the rankings for the last 3 years. And so it just doesn't move anything forward, and you're left in a position where this is kind of the best option. This is the only thing that's really available to either of these guys. And so I'm interested. I want to see it. I look forward to it on Saturday. It's just the like fights for me. I would like to see somebody at least move forward out of this fight. And I don't really feel like either guy does, regardless of what happens.
It's probably a Whittaker demolition job inside 2 rounds. Though.
Probably.
You reckon this fight?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can see this. I know Vettori is he's a tough motherfucker, man. I think that he is definitely, I think getting all 3 rounds, he will see that as a victory in this fight. I just don't know if Robert Whittaker has that fire anymore. I think it'll be interesting to see. Come back and ask me after I watch maybe 2 minutes of the fight. We'd all be geniuses then, I guess. But you know, I look at this fight as a one, honestly, that could go either way by a decision, to be honest. And I'd say that not based off of skills versus skills, more so of where Robert Whittaker is at. He's talking about moving up to 205. He's talking about this, that, and the other. I mean, where is his head actually at right now when it comes to fighting? What's getting him motivated? Does he need a fresh challenge? Yeah, that's where I think about it. I'm not going to change my mind now. So
roll on. I mean, I think because there's stuff to talk about on the card, but the fight after this is horrendous. But
yeah, we're not like Alessio Di Chirico and Roman Kovalov is happening, and I'm glad you said that because I'm not too keen about talking about that too much at all. Nasrat Hasparat, John Makdessi. Oh yeah, that's a good fight now. Always good to see Nasrat in there. I mean, he's coming in this fight based off 2 losses to Dan Hooker and Bobby Green. John Makdessi is a fight that is probably a winnable fight for him to get back in, so he's not losing 3 in a row, so he doesn't have to get cut. So I mean, does anybody have anything to add on this fight?
Yes,
Harry.
We're going to find out again where the floor is for Nasrat Haqparast. We all started pretty high, me included, pretty high on Haqparast. Thought he had aspirations to climb those rankings and, you know, do well and whatever. We found out that maybe he didn't have as much variety as we thought he had. We thought, you know, maybe he wasn't as skilled as we thought. We saw a ceiling. We've now seen another ceiling in Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, who, look, Bobby Green on his night is a brilliant fighter, right? Really tough to deal with, really tough stylistic matchup. We're now going to find out whether he's getting the really, really on the slide veteran test in Makdessi, right? This is a guy who is going to stand in front of you, and if you're anywhere near what you thought you were with your hands and your movement and your pressure fighting, you'll be able to beat John Makdessi. If not, and John Makdessi looks good against you, then again, we have to reevaluate where that floor is. But I don't, you know, John Makdessi is a guy that the UFC can keep around. He's not on a ton of money. He's, you know, he's not blowing bricks up anywhere. He's just sat taking on fights as and when he wants them in Europe. For Nasrat Haqparast, I think this is are you going to stick around or not fight? So if he goes out and looks great, cool, he gets another chance. If not, I think that's it for Nasrat Haqparast.
Yeah, I would tend to agree as well. And I don't think that pressure is on John McDessie as well, picking up a win in his last fight against Ignacio Bahamondes. Would you like to add your assessment on this fight and where both fighters are? Spencer, shall we move on?
I mean, I just personally, I'm not getting anywhere excited about Nasrat Haqparast if he wins this fight.
No.
Like, great, you beat John McDessie, who is everything that Harry said, good and bad. Like, he is a battle-tested, proven veteran. He is also the exact same kind of guy that Nasrat Haqparast has traditionally beaten before moving up to face guys that aren't in the top 15 and getting beat. And so the only way that this fight plays out to where I come away going, okay, maybe I've got to give Haqparast another good look is if he goes out there and he gets him out of there really quickly and looks quite sharp. But that hasn't been him. That hasn't been his MO, right? Like, he'll go out there and jab you up and yeah, it looks good. And maybe you get a finish like you did against Joaquin Silva. But like, McDessie is also a guy that's going to stay out at range and isn't going to look to get in a big firefight. And so I think Haqparast wins, probably working behind a jab and working behind some kicks. But there's just nothing here for me anymore. Like, and it sucks because I was one of those people that was all in, that thought this kid
rightfully so.
Looks great.
He's really fallen off now. You're talking about 3-2 in his last 5, getting found out against maybe a more elite level opponents in Hooker and Bobby Green. I mean,
but even
as someone like it's coming up,
right? Like, the Drew Dober fight was the test after 3 good wins, after the big celebration of, oh, look how quickly and how efficiently he got Joaquin Silva out of there. And Drew Dober was like, great, here's a left hand. See ya. We're going to go home. So coming back and getting 2 wins over Alex Munoz and Rafa Garcia. They're reasonable wins. Rafa Garcia looked good last time out. But this is show me something more than just that you can get a victory here. Yeah. Show me that I need to be excited about you again. Otherwise, continue to hang out in the middle of this division and we'll wait and see what happens.
Well, someone I can promise you guys that we should be excited about, and that's William Gomis, who's coming in against Jarno Aarons in his next fight. I've seen William Gomis for the first time against Tobias Aurelia in Cage Warriors, who is a tricky guy in his own right, and he really, really, really impressed me in that fight, and I'm so glad he's getting his chance to fight in the UFC. He's been on a wicked run, 7-8 fight win streak. He gets guys out of there. He knocks those guys out. Harry, I know that you've seen William Gomis. Did you get the chance to see him? You didn't get the chance to see him live at that event, did you? No, unfortunately not. But as Spencer would have seen him as well in the Cage Warrior shows, he definitely is a guy, is someone worth looking out for here. Can't say I know Jared Aarons too well. I haven't had a chance to see that much tape on him. Have you had a chance to get a look at him, Spencer? How do you see these two guys kind of matching up?
I mean, this feels like a showcase the local guy who we added on late, right? Like, this is a MMA factory fighter, so trains with Cyril Gane and Nasruddin Imavov under Fernand Lopez in Paris. As you said, has some good wins in good promotions, is a finisher, is in that sort of late 20s range of just might be coming into his prime. So let's get him out here, get him a showcase, and let the people in Paris really enjoy seeing one of their own get a big win. That's not to take anything away from Jarno Aarons, who, I think he's 13-4.
13-4, but fought a 0-0 guy only 6 fights ago.
And that's the problem, right? Is he's one of these guys that's fighting professional opponents and weekend warriors in second division, third division shows. And so this feels like flashy record gets a shot, and then he'll face some other newcomer in the winner stays and the loser goes home fight next time, while William Gomis gets to have a celebration on Saturday.
Absolutely. Another fight after that is my fight of the card. It's the fight that I'm, do you know what, even probably more looking forward to than the co-main event and the main event really am, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, and that's Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. A fucking Canadian killer versus a UK killer. These two guys have the same come forward mentality. They would rather die in that cage than lose. And this is going to be an absolute barn burner between these two guys. Harry, talk to me about Nathaniel Wood. You had the chance to speak with him a little while back. I mean, looking at this fight for him, I'm a little bit worried for him, to be honest. And I've been the guy who's been championing Nathaniel Woods for the longest time. I thought, he got his feet wet in his last fight for his featherweight debut. He's coming in here against serious opposition in Charles Jourdain, in my opinion.
Sign me.
Yes, get in there. I'm going to be so hyped after talking about this. I know it.
Fucking A, lads. Fucking A. Jesus. I mean, okay.
We should have just did the preview on this fight alone and then called it quits.
You're fucking right. Look, okay. So, to me, I'm not as worried for Nathaniel. The thing that, okay, let me start that again. The thing that worries me about this fight is size and physicality. That's something that worries me here. When we saw Shane Burgos versus Charles Jourdain in his last one, Burgos looks like a fucking welterweight, an absolute unit of a man, right? And Jourdain just looked a regular-sized dude. Nathaniel Wood coming up from 135, whilst he looked fine for the weight in his last fight, he was against a guy that's not the biggest in the division either, right? Charles Jourdain, we're going to see. Right? We're going to see what that physicality can do. And we're going to see whether Nathaniel is able to deal with the variety of Charles Jourdain. Now, the thing that I like about this is in that fight with Charles Rosa, Nathaniel was working on entering in and out of the pocket extremely quickly and was looking beautiful in his application of that. Charles Jourdain is somebody that wants to fight in the pocket. Nathaniel Wood has fantastic leg kicks, some good takedown defense, and a wicked front headlock game if it gets there. I feel like all of those things are going to be incredibly necessary when he fights Charles Jourdain, because if the things get hairy on the feet and Jourdain feels a little bit uncomfortable, he's got that grappling in his back pocket and he's going to make Nathaniel Wood test his own grappling. And I think that's interesting. I'm not quite sure who I think has the power advantage. I'd probably lean Jourdain if I had a gun to my head, but I just think this screams barn burner. Nathaniel is happy to get into a scrap. Jourdain loves a scrap. Nathaniel will come out in that first round and try to do the technical in and out, big shot landing, combination fighting, push you back type of style. Jourdain will try and just wear him down and grind him out and get in his face and beat the fuck out of him. Guys, this is a great fight. If I can just add a tiny bit of analysis here that I think is going to be important.
Please do.
If I'm Nathaniel Wood, I am going immediately to the body, and I'm going very often to the body, and I am taking away those legs as much as possible. Here, Nathaniel Wood is the smaller guy, probably, but certainly the quicker guy, the more agile guy. So I'd be using that to my advantage in the first round. Get Charles Jourdain through those first 5 minutes, beat up the body, beat up the legs, allow him to walk you down, push him back when you can, stuff the shots if they come, and then wait until the second and the third round to start doing the war thing. Because Nathaniel has a tendency to, when he gets into wars, he forgets about the defensive capability that he has, and he just leaves his chin out there.
I.e. Josh Reed fight.
That's a problem against Jourdain. That's a big old problem. We don't want to be doing any of that shit.
Especially against someone like Charles Jourdain, who we've seen grow into fights as well.
Exactly.
And I think that's where, there will be a big turning point maybe in this fight as well. Like, I've had lucky enough to have the chance to speak to Charles a couple of weeks back, and I know you're very close with him as well, Spencer. What really impressed me was his mentality, which you really, like, we look at these fighters, we go in there, we see them fighting, we see it, We see them say things on the camera for promotion and the build up to the fight. You know what I mean? How you really truly get to know a fighter, what I think is when you get the chance to spend maybe 20 or 30 minutes with them and sit down with them and you talk to them on camera and you talk to them off camera. And what really impressed me about Charles was his mentality. He knows who he is. He knows where he's at in his career, not even thinking about titles yet. Still looking to grow as a fighter. And still eventually sees himself getting up there eventually. And he has all the time in the world to do it. He's only 26 years of age. You know, you want to look at this fight and say that the Shane Burgos fight is fresh in our memories. It may be a quick turnaround, but it's also a quick turnaround for Nathaniel Wood as well. And also, Charles Jourdain was winning that fight in round 3 as well. So it wasn't as if he was taking heavy shots. It wasn't as if he was under pressure. Look, he took some amount of damage, but it didn't seem he took too much detrimental damage in that Shane Burgos fight. And, you know, it's kind of an even keel coming in here. What's your assessment on Charles and his chances in this fight?
I mean, I think it's as close to a coin flip fight as we're going to see, right? Like, this is one of those ones, exactly as Harry said. Like, I think it depends a little bit on which version of Nathaniel Wood wants to come out there. Talked to him on Monday and said, and asked him, addressed sort of what Harry said of like, look, sometimes he likes to get in brawls and he just kind of tosses all the good technical ability away. And he was like, yeah, sometimes you just, yep, that's what happens. Sometimes you go out there and you decide, I'm going to risk it. But when you risk it, you run the risk of getting caught yourself. And so on Monday, as he's packing, readying to go to Paris, I'm going to be technical. And I think I'm the better striker. And yep, looks like it should be a barn burner and 50 G's written all over it and all of those things. We'll see what happens on Saturday. Like Charles Jourdain, as you said, is a guy that knows who he is. The thing that I worry about when you say that, you know, he can go for titles later and he's still got all of this time. It's true, but he's also a guy right now that is just about the war, that is just about the battle. And that's a risky spot to be in, even at 26, when you say, well, there's time for me to dial it back and stop taking so many risks down the road. He wanted to fight in Paris. He sought out this opportunity. He was frustrated by the way Shane Burgos didn't fight him the way he thought he would. You saw that in the fight. And so I'm pretty sure he's coming out here just looking to get into an absolute brawl on Saturday. And it's going to be on Nathaniel Wood to decide, okay, fuck it. Let's just see, you know, rock'em sock'em robots, which one of us stays standing. Or if he says, I got to be smarter than this. I got to be better than this. Because the thing he said on Monday when I spoke to him about changing divisions is that now that he doesn't have to cut weight, now that it's, you know, a couple kilos the week of the fight, he can be more active and he can be out there regularly. And that's how you make up for those 2 years or 18 months on the sidelines. And you go out there and you beat a guy like Charles Jourdain for a second win in 6 weeks. All of a sudden, we're talking about a different position. And I just think after 2 years away or however long it officially was, Nathaniel Wood's not coming out here to just be like, fuck it. As long as I get 50K, I'm great. I think he wants to go out there and get a good win over a guy we all respect, over a guy we all appreciate. And so I don't know that he necessarily gets into the, like, let's throw caution to the wind fight that everybody's thinking.
No, I think it would be to his detriment if Nathaniel Wood decided to do that in this fight. And I think
Nathaniel Wood, though.
It's Nathaniel. Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
I got a feeling he's going to get cracked and we're going to see the fight that we
both these guys got that dog in them. You know what I mean?
It's going to be interesting to me, and you guys can speak to this better than I can about Nathaniel Wood, is if this turns into, like, I don't think either of these guys are coming out shooting, but if this turns into scrambles, if this turns into some grappling, we've seen Charles Jourdain lock up a lovely choke against Lando Venata very recently. He is a black belt under Fabio Holanda, which is a legitimate black belt. He's not one of these guys that's, you know, just carting around a ranking in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We've seen Nathaniel Wood get a bunch of submissions. Who do you favor if this goes to the canvas, if this turns into some of these scrambles and submission opportunities open up?
if I may go first, I would probably now, and before I say this or give my assessment, like I am a huge fan of Nathaniel Wood, his fight style and his levels of skills. When he joined the UFC, I even said he had potential to go on and become a champion if everything clicked for him. But I think what Charles Jourdain needs to do in this fight is make and force Nathaniel Wood to fight a featherweight fight, because Charles Rosa just stood in front of him and they tipped and tapped for 3 rounds. There was no grappling exchanges. There was no weight put on anybody. Jourdain is going to be the physically bigger guy in there, and he's going to have to make Nathaniel Wood realize that, and he's going to have to try and tire him out. And you're not going to do that by just standing and brawling. You have to initiate those grappling exchanges. You have to make yourself strong in the clinch. You have to push him up against the cage. You have to make him work to try and reverse. You have to put him on his back. You have to try and make him force get up and then see what he has left in him at the end of round 3. And I think that's... I struggle to say it because it's just one exchange in this fight and it can turn into absolute chaos. And that's it. It's as simple as that. This could be a technical fight, but it could be a technical fight for maybe 1 minute until a big shot is landed, and next thing it could break into all hell. It breaks loose then inside the octagon. What would your assessment be of it overall, Harry?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of One Man Booth, hosted this time by your new host, Mr. Ian O'Neill.
Stop.
I just don't know, because we even saw in the Charles Rosa fight, Nathaniel's doing brilliant. I mean, to answer your first question, Spencer, the answer is Charles Jourdain, right? He has a far superior method of snatching chokes, of finding things in the scramble. As I said, Nathaniel has a wicked front headlock game. If it gets to front headlock, we might be seeing Nathaniel lock up Darcy's and look for anacondas and these sorts of things, and he's very, very good at them. However, I think if we're looking at overall scrambles and we're scrambling for position and scrambling for top position, if I'm Nathaniel Wood, I don't really want to spend too much time on my back with Charles Jourdain on top of me. And I think Nathaniel will understand and recognize that. I think in a scramble, Charles Jourdain is the more dangerous man. I think in a pure wrestling exchange, it's probably, a fun enough, even exchange. However, in order for the technical things that Ian has mentioned to happen, there can't be a pocket exchange where both lads land, right? We saw it in the Charles Rosa fight. Nathaniel looked beautiful when he wasn't getting touched in the exchanges. And there was a moment when Rosa lands in the first round and Nathaniel nods his chin and was like, okay, we're doing the thing now. It was the same in the Josh Reed fight, right? Exactly the same. He goes out, he looks gorgeous, beautiful, slick. And then he gets clipped and he's like, well, okay, I guess it's a fight now. And
I think the prime example was in the John Dodson fight as well, where he got clipped and just chose to bang. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with someone like John Dodson with his power, what we've seen happen, you get dropped, you get finished. And you know what? That's not beyond the realms of possibility in this fight either for Nathaniel Wood, especially with the power that Charles Jourdain comes in. I'm just super curious. I'm split. I want to see that beautiful technical fight because I want to see who technically is better. And then on the other hand, I want to see kind of that dog fight as well. So maybe if we get 2 rounds of technical and then 1 dog fight to finish off round 3, we can keep everybody happy here. I'm not too sure. But like Harry said, it's just what both of these guys have a tendency when they're clipped to just that flip switches and they just fucking go into kill mode.
I think it's that. I think it's whoever loses their mentality first. I think that's what decides this fight, to be honest. If Jourdain loses his mentality and Nathaniel's able to keep on his bike and do the in and out and do all that stuff, he probably beats him, right? If the opposite happens and Nathaniel loses his mentality and just like, fuck it, we're fighting now, boy, oh boy, I don't want to just be fighting with Charles Jourdain. I really don't, I really don't. So, but it's a fantastic fight, brilliant fight. Can't wait for it.
Either can I. I really, really can't wait for this fight. I wish it was happening in 5 minutes, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer. So we shall move on. I'm going to skip down a little bit through the prelims here, and we're going to go straight to Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. Spencer, I'm going to give you the floor for this fight, please.
I mean, I just think Nasruddin Imavov is so intriguing right now in this division. He's my fighter to watch for the week. adored his performance against Ian Heinisch. I adored his performance against Edmund Shabazian. I think both of those fights showed that he learned from his loss against Phil Hawes that he needs to be first. He needs to be the one dictating terms. He needs to be the one coming forward rather than working backwards and rather than accepting clinch positions and being pressed into the cage. And I just think it's 6'3" with a good reach, a good length, and a guy that knows how to use it with, as Harry said earlier, that wrestling in the back pocket when it's needed. He's not coming out and necessarily first thing first looking to grapple. But there are moments in each of his fights, and you saw it in the Ian Heinisch fight. There was a moment where both Dominic Cruz and Daniel Cormier had a little chuckle because there was a shoot and a reshoot, which is a pure wrestling thing. It's you get stuffed, you're on your knees, you just drive forward again and finish the takedown. And they like absolutely fall over themselves. And then went, oh, right, he's Dagestani as well. Like, yes, he fights out of France, but he's Dagestani as well. He's just that guy to me in a division that is devoid of intriguing and fresh young talent that really stands out. And I think this is an opportunity to really stand out. Joaquin Buckley's looked good in his last few fights. He's struggled against guys that have this size. He's often willing to just hang out outside and try to pick his shots and try to snipe and try to land one big blow. And I think against Imavov, that's a recipe for either getting picked apart for 15 minutes or, as Harry said earlier in the show, if he decides to wrestle and put him on the ground, this could be done real quick.
Yeah, and it's that wrestling factor from Imavov here that could take so much from Joaquin Buckley's game, isn't it? Would you have that kind of assessment, Harry?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Buckley is the same kind of guy. He's a rhythm guy. If you allow him to do the rhythm thing, he's fine, right? He's a fine fighter, massive power, great athlete, and knows a bit about footwork and knows a bit about the fighting. But it feels to me like this is a fight where they've given Buckley because they can run the highlight reels, right? And when Imavov goes out there, he's going to have a choice of what to do, right? If he wants to stand and strike, I think he can. I think the wrestling exchanges will be there. We have seen with Buckley that he is a good athlete and he will be able to stuff some takedowns. But as Spencer already said, this is not a one and done type takedown guy. This is if I choose to grapple, I'm going to continue to do the grappling things until you're on the floor and I'm comfortable with it. And if that continues to happen, Buckley's going to do the thing that a bag of athletes do, where they try to do athletic movements to get up. He's going to get tired and then he's going to get drowned. Like, that's just the way it's going to happen. So I think Buckley has that big shot in him. And we've seen that Imavov is sometimes caught in weird ranges and, is a bit clunky at times. And you don't want to be in those sorts of situations with Joaquin Buckley. But I feel like this is a showcase for Imavov. This is a way to be like, maybe this is a mini middleweight thing where the winner of Robert Whittaker and Marvin Vettori gets Imavov if he wins against Buckley. I wonder whether it's something like that, right? Both same timelines, go out, get good wins. That's an easy made fight. You know what I mean?
That's what the UFC do like to do, to have certain guys on certain timelines that they could see matching off here. And that's a very likely outcome as well if Imavov does get the chance to get in there. I'd like to see him. I think it's a pretty winnable fight against someone like Joaquin Buckley. I think you both really covered it well, and I wouldn't disagree with anything you guys said. I think athleticism will get Joaquin Buckley so far. I think having the thought of that takedown in the back of his mind is going to kind of make him a little bit gun shy, which ultimately will probably see him lose this fight overall. Harry, I'm going to go to you. Faris Saim is coming in there. He's getting a second chance at the UFC against Mikhail Figlak, one half of the Figlak brothers, who have been running amok in the cage warrior scene and on the UK and the European scene for the last couple of years. Without saying anything at all, I'm going to give you a clean slate for this. Give me your assessment. How excited are you to see Figlak fighting on the big stage, and how does he match up with Zaim?
Fuck me, lads. I'm in. Sign me up. So I like Faris Siam. I like him as a fighter. I think he has an interesting style. You go in, you get choked by Terence McKinney. these things happen in MMA. You know, what are you going to do? But I like him. I think he's a guy that's long and knows how to use it. And as you know, if you're a guy that's long and know how to use it, you've got the fan in me. Figlak, however, is a motherfucker. He is a motherfucker. For that division, he's got Benson Henderson type thighs. He can do a bit of everything. He's not the quickest guy, but he's a guy that knows how to use his footwork. His head movement is good. He strikes with vicious intentions. He can grapple. Go back and watch the fight with Agi Sardari. I was live for that one. Agi Sardari is a really good fighter, not a fighter that you're going to see in the UFC or winning UFC titles or anything like that, but he's a good, solid Dutch kickboxing background, good grappler, good defensive grappler, good offensive grappler, just an all-round good fighter. And Figlak fucking smoked that dude. It was nuts. I feel like this is a good styles matchup for both guys, right? Figlak is somebody that is going to come forward. He is going to try and cut the cage off. He is going to try and get in your face. Zaim, if he can do the thing that we've seen him do in previous fights, it'll look a little bit like Wilson Gomez, Tobias Harila, right? Where he's on the back foot. He's got good footwork. He's landing his shots when he can land them. Nice kicks, whatever. But Figlak is mean in there. All of those shots are intended to hurt you. There's no point fighting in here. There's no just racking up effective striking to get on the board. Each of those shots, when they land, are there to hurt you. My only worry for Figlak, and I don't think we're going to see it in this fight, but if he gets through this fight and he continues on up through the division, is sometimes he's a little bit he rushes decisions a little bit too much. So he'll have his man halfway hurt and he'll barrel on into the position and he'll really try and get him out there and he'll land his shots. And I think that's something that will grow. I mean, you know, Figlak is, what is he? 9
He's
and
only 20, yeah, 9-0, only 26, you know, and those are, and look, this is a question that I would have to you, or pose for you. Do you think it might be not this fight necessarily, but maybe a little bit too soon for Figlak, as in where you would like to see him maybe go and fight for a Cage Warriors title, maybe defend that once, maybe work out a few more wrinkles, because the time for making mistakes is not inside the octagon, because any little small mistake can be capitalized on. And, you know, my fear is, and I think Shawnee and Graham mentioned it on the big podcast too, is that if it is a little bit too soon and he doesn't get, if this goes wrong for him, I mean, this is a very winnable fight for him against a very winnable opponent, I would have to say. After this, I mean, it depends how well the UFC match him. Personally, I'm happy to see him in there. I would have liked to see him going for the title. I would like to see him maybe a little bit more fight experience, get that world title in Cage Warriors, because he would have been very capable of doing so, and that opportunity was there as well. What would your assessment on that be? Do you think it might be a little bit too soon for him, or would you hope that the UFC matches him fairly?
Well, to me, if we're hoping on the UFC matching him fairly, it means it's too soon.
Yes.
Right? So I would have liked him to have taken the Ian Gary approach, right? Like, come out and be like, you know what? I'm just not ready yet. Or the Paddy the Buddy approach when the UFC came calling the first time. And he's like, look, I'm going to the UFC one day. Don't worry about that. I'm going, but I'll go when I can hang with those guys, when I can give the best version of myself. I think that's the smartest thing. And I feel like this wouldn't have been the first and only opportunity for Figlak to get that call. He's a good fighter. He's a great prospect. If you go in, and it may be Joe McColgan, it may be somebody else in there, whoever it is, you go in, you take the fight, you win the belt, and you go home, and then you reevaluate your options, right? Do I defend it once? Do I just take the call immediately? There is every chance that Figlak goes out there, destroys Zayam, and then the next fight is a tough one, right? Is the next one... Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be Terrence McKinney, but you know what I mean, right?
Well, we're talking about the lightweight division. It's up there, one of the top divisions in the UFC right now. So, I mean, there's very, very little hiding places as well. I don't think that Figlak is going to come in with the personality that the UFC are going to be looking to sell.
Figlak, Paddy the Buddy. Let's fucking do it.
There you go. Wouldn't that be one? Wouldn't that be one?
Let's see it.
Yeah, that would be tasty, tasty, tasty. In regards, and maybe generally speaking, Spencer, like what we're talking about, it's all well and good. We can sit down and we can say it's too soon, but when that shiny contract is put down in front of you and that's what you're dreaming of, it's very hard to turn that opportunity down, really. Generally speaking, the path that you would like fighters coming into the UFC, and all of that has been kind of thrown into the mix with the Dana White Contender Series now and the different pathways into the UFC, and the fact that they're really signing fighters that are relatively inexperienced in their professional career somewhat. Not saying that Figlak is, but
right,
like it's finding that right time and knowing when the right time is. It's a very hard thing in this day and age.
It is. That is the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope for him, though, going forward, is that it is the lightweight division. There are currently 84 fighters as of Zane Simon's last update on his wonderful sheet. Thanks, Zane. And there are Contender Series fights for the next 4 weeks where we will see some more lightweights brought into the fold. And so I think there are maybe not opportunities to hide, but there are opportunities to sort of slow play this if you're Figlak and his team, and take a little bit of the same as Harry's saying, the Ian Gary approach while he's in the UFC, right? Ian Gary came out right away and was like, look, I'm 24 years old. I have 8 fights. Like, let me just take my time. Let me get Darian Weeks. Let me get Gabriel Green. And so if you can, I think the key is showing that it's worth the UFC's investment, right? Show that, okay, there's a reason for us to invest in this person. There's a reason for us to allow him or them to come along slowly without it being a hustle along thing, right? Paddy's gotten matched up the way that Paddy's gotten matched up because all of everything else with it is just printing money. And so why do we want to hurry that and get rid of that? And if Figlak goes out and shows, okay, in 2 years, in 3 years, when we're going to need new up and coming prospects in this division, this guy might be one. So let's not go get him beat up in the next 2 years to where he ends up 2-4 because he's been fighting guys that are just that much better than him and that much more experienced, and he's burnt and he's wasted. Let's give him the chance to progress. And I think with the number of people coming in from Contender Series, with the number of events that take place, there's a chance to sort of ride out 2 or 3 or 4 fights in sort of that lower range to work out some of the kinks, to figure out some of the things, so long as you are giving the UFC a reason to sort of allow there to be investment in you. I think what you guys said, for me personally, is the way I would like to see it. I always go back to my conversation earlier this year with Joe Lozon of take as many fights as you can on the regional circuit, build up that experience, be as good as you can be before you get there, because once you get there, it's a whole different game. It's all different stakes. It shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't necessarily even be about championships, although that certainly is a thing that prepares you differently, right? Going through a 5-round fight, going through the promotion and the, extras that come with being the main event of a big show like Cage Warriors in terms of regional shows. Certainly a thing that doesn't hurt anybody. But for me, it's get there when you are ready to go. Don't just go because the UFC called and, oh my God, they may not call again. If you're good enough to get there, they will keep calling. We've seen that, right? Jimmy Manuwa, Paddy Pimblett, even lesser guys, Chris Kalidas, who was a Canadian guy several years ago, a flyweight, called and he said, look, nope, I'm not ready. I think he was 28, 29 at the time. He had to go out. He won a few more fights. 3 years later, shows up in the UFC, has a nice little run. If you're confident in your skills and your ability to eventually get there and succeed, it's okay to say not right now. The fact that Figlak has said yes, I think means that he thinks he's ready to be there. I think this is a good matchup. I think it's a good opportunity. I mean, some of it is also that it's Europe, right? And that is part of it. I'm sure he got a little bit of an extra incentive, maybe even, to come and let's do it now rather than hang out.
Yeah, because it was a late addition to the card as well, and
Yep.
you look at the list of fights on Topology, and a lot of fights have fallen out of this card,
Yep.
as well. So the UFC were scrambling, and I know there was other names there too,
Right.
as well, that were being called or were expected to get the call as well. It'll be interesting to see. It's going to be an interesting, maybe even I'm not sure if you covered it on a speaker's corner yet, Harry, but maybe finding that right time to enter into the UFC is something that's worth talking about. And the introduction of Dana White Contender Series, I'm seeing guys on regional shows call for a shot at the Contender Series rather than call for a shot at the title in their promotions, and that worries me a little bit, to be honest. I mean, I always like that. Build yourself on the regional scene, establish yourself in the promotion that you've come up in, win that title, defend that title, bring it over. It's a tried, true, and tested format that has worked for a lot of fighters. It'll be interesting to see how it goes down. Nonetheless, I'm excited to see. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited to see Figlak in there. I would expect him to pick up a win on his UFC debut. Someone else I'm really excited to see is Francis Benmont Saint-Denis, who almost got killed against Zaleski and his first. I'm going to bring that up every single time.
So you should.
Vlalashev Kizelev almost got him killed. That Russian referee we've never see again, and I hope we never do see again. Should be ashamed of himself, because this is a guy who I was looking at before he signed for the UFC for Brave, who was looking real good. And the beating that he took against Zaleski can kind of change a man. And hopefully it hasn't taken too much out of it. In his last fight against Nicholas Stolze, looked pretty damn good. Didn't look like it took too much out of him. I'm excited to see him come in here against Gabriel Miranda, who will make his UFC debut. Is Benoit Saint-Denis someone that we should be getting excited about, Spencer? Like, minorly. I'm not saying that he's going to be fucking top 10 or 15.
I think so. Look, I'm somebody that gets excited about everybody that's going to come out there and give me entertaining fights in the middle of a fight card. And so he is, I mean, even in that near-death experience against Elizeu Zaleski, he stuck it out for 15 minutes. Like, that's a tough son of a bitch right there.
Ticked off the duration box.
And then he goes back down. Then he goes back down to lightweight and just runs through Nicholas Stolze. Like, just dominates start to finish. Had him rocked throughout the first round. Comes out in the second and is like, cool, we're going to do some grappling now and I'm going to get you out of here. Like, and he's 26. Give me more of this guy. Doesn't have to be a championship contender. Doesn't have to be somebody that, is going to progress all the way up the ranks. I am all about bottom half of the division, super entertaining guys that I look forward to seeing. He is very much on my list of cannot wait to see him fight on Saturday Fighters.
Absolutely. Would you be the same? Are you looking forward to seeing him in there as well, Harry?
Yep. Chuck him in the Jim Miller backpack and let's go for a walk. I'm down.
Let's go, champ. Okay. Anything that you would like us to talk about, Spencer, before we kind of wrap it up here? A couple of fights that we haven't mentioned on the prelims, anything or anyone we should be kind of looking towards?
I mean, we have the German middleweight title fight between Abus Magomedov and Dustin Stolfutz, right? Neither are actually German, but both reside and fight representing Germany. Talked to Dustin about this. Very happy to see him get his first win. He talked about all of the pressure and sort of the mounting exponential pressure and challenges that he faced, that he felt going through those first three losses. He also aptly described Gerald Meerschaert as a punching bag that can make you pay for mistakes late in fights. And he did. He acknowledged that Gerald did that to him. So that one's interesting to me. We touched on Saint-Denis. Eileen Perez is someone, like, I don't have any expectations of this woman. But as I said in mentioning her in Fighters on the Rise, the thing you need to know is that going into UFC 277, she was talking shit at Juliana Pena, being like, listen, bitch, don't be talking about there's nobody up at featherweight. This is my division. I'm here now. September, I fight in Paris. December, I fight Amanda. Let's fucking go. So listen, if you're running with that kind of bravado, I'm tuning in. Stephanie Egger taps in for Zara Farn. Stephanie Egger, of course, is coming off that what? Who tapped? I didn't tap. Fight against Mayra Buena Silva. She's not cutting any weight. We'll see what happens, right? Featherweight, there really isn't. Like, don't get mad at me either, Eileen Perez, but there's no one in the division. And so if you give me somebody like that that's going to talk a whole bunch of junk, I'm interested in seeing it. Like, let's just see. Let's just check it out. I think she's 6-1 in her career, 7-1 in her career. She's just been fighting, as we've talked about, people that are hobbyists and interested in maybe trying this fighting thing every once in a while. Now she's getting in there with a world-class judoka who's got some UFC wins. So let's see how good you are now that you've already said you're going to face Amanda Nunes in December.
Indeed, it is. A women's featherweight fight is as rare as 100,000 performance bonus in the UFC. You've seen them rarely, but we'll get to see that one open up the card in Paris on Saturday. I'm going all in on this card, guys. I'm off to Quebec City tomorrow. I'm going to be in Montreal for the card itself, getting close to the French roots, the French Canadian roots. I'll be eating some croissants and enjoying some bagels and stuff over there. Spencer is shaking his head.
Oh man, just go to Schwartz's, get the Montreal smoked meat, half fat. Get a couple pickles on the side and a cherry
I'm going to
Coke.
message you, definitely. I'd be like, Spencer, sort us out for this.
Harry's got spots too. Harry's been.
Yeah, he's been there too. Two well-traveled gentlemen here. Well, no, in fairness, I've been doing my best to see Canada since I moved over here, and this is the last two cities on my list that I've yet to see. So I'm really looking forward to getting over there. If I catch the fights, it happens. If I don't, I'll catch them afterwards. But as always, it was great to come on here with you guys and break down the cards. The California kid was missed. He's back. Not alone is he back, he's back with a back piece for the ages. I'm not going to ask you to whip off your shirt there now, Harry, but holy shit, head over to his Instagram and check out the picture of the back piece that he got done in California. It is unbelievable. Give us a little, it deserves 2 minutes of your time to just explain that back piece, Harry. Just give us a little bit of what you got done over there.
Sure. So I went to California and I was privileged enough to get some time with a New Zealand artist called Matt Jordan. He is somebody that specializes in like tapestry type pieces. It's not pure realism, but he like takes his roots from Renaissance art and builds like big tapestry pieces. And I spent my first 30 hours getting a depiction of the Greek mythology story of Hades and Persephone. So a loose just understanding of that story is Hades is obviously the god of the underworld. Persephone is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, however you want to pronounce it. And Persephone was the sort of the god of nature and growth and the spring and all of these things. Hades stole her to the underworld, and they then bargained a deal where Persephone would be able to go to our world or Earth or whatever for 6 months of the year. And that's how they explained the seasons, right? As Persephone was rising from the underworld, then it would be, springtime and then summertime when she rose. And then as she fell back down, it'd be autumn and wintertime. And me and Matt just thought that was a really nice depiction of chaos and order. And they're stood next to my version of the Tree of Life. So, yeah.
Beautiful. It's a great piece. I mean, I really mean it. The detail in it was unbelievable. 30 hours work already and another, 30 to go as well on top of that?
30 in Germany, and then he wants me to go to New Zealand in 2024 for another 30 hours.
Holy shit, that's going to look unbelievable when it's all done. Spencer, you're taking a little bit of time away yourself soon as well. You're going to take a bit of time away from the keyboard, from the camera, but you're working hard to make sure that the work continues, man. The hardest working man in the industry. He's fucking putting down work over the next couple of days, and he takes a much-deserved break.
The next 4 days, we're taping this, so let everybody behind the curtain. We're taping this on Tuesday afternoon, just before Contender Series jumps off. So I am going to do the recaps of Contender Series, and then I have 13 pieces that are on my whiteboard that I need to get done before I get the hell out of here. That does not include the stuff that I will be posting on the Keyboard Kimura Audio Video Network. So probably closer to 20 pieces between now and Friday, so that I can take my first full-blown, not doing any work, not bringing a laptop, going away on vacation in, I think, probably since I started doing this. Like every time we've gone away, I've brought a laptop, done a little bit of work. I'm the dude that sat in a hotel room in Hawaii and typed up fight by fight previews and Fighters on the Rise while my wife sat by the pool or sat by the ocean. Not doing any of that. Going back to Newfoundland. Haven't been out there in 14 years. since my wife was in school. So going out with her and my in-laws and just seeing some family, getting off the grid, putting the laptop away. Fights are going to happen and I'm not going to know what's going on. And I'm actually really looking forward to it.
There's a much, much deserved break, Spencer, and a much one for Harry as well, who's been doing the Lord work. And I'm going to do a little bit of a break myself as well. No laptop is coming with me to Quebec and Montreal. Just a couple of days away. It'll be nice. I'll maybe try catch the fights. If I don't, I'll catch them afterwards, like I said. It was always a pleasure, like I mentioned in a couple of minutes ago, to come on and talk to about these fights. It's great to have Harry back with us. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. No, we'll be back. Well, feel like 2 weeks' time now, because it'll be next weekend and the following weekend. But we'll be back next week to talk UFC 279. No breathing room in between this card and the next. I wanted everybody to look at that barcode up in the top right over Harry's head. Scan that. Head on over to SevereMMA Patreon. Sign up there. Harry's on there. Spencer makes an appearance. I'm on there. Great content there. Support us. We're independent MMA. We do our best to give you the best quality content on our Patreon, the best value in the market. Head on over to the Keyboard Kimura and subscribe there to great man Spencer Kite. The Next Day Takeaway, subscribe to that channel on YouTube as well. Check out all of Harry's work and my work on SevereMMA.com. The Severe Spotlight will be back this Monday, whenever Harry chooses to do so. One-man booth. Everything, speaker's corner on it. The man does nothing but good work, as that man down here does nothing but good work. And I do some pretty damn good work myself as well. Check out the Owl Triangle, which is also out this week. And please check out our sponsors, All Real Nutrition Bars. Head on over to eatallreal.com. Enter the code word SevereMMA. Get yourself 15% off this delicious product. Protein bars, the best in the market, Irish made, environmentally friendly. Get you some. We'll talk to you next week for UFC 279. Peace out. Enjoy.